Views, or today I should say. We've got Mike Pap Antonio. He is America's lawyer, title that I love. and so, Pap, it's great to have you on. Also, host of Ring of Fire, of course. And Pap's got a new book out, Law and Disorder. That's a good starting point, Pap, because last night at the debates, Donald Trump talked about how he's the law and order. We have to have law and order. We've got to have a country, he says. We don't have a country. So, do you believe him when he says he's the law and order candidate?
Well, he has the potential to sell that because everybody wants to hear it right now. I don't know. I'm sure you read Rick Perlstein's Nixon Land that came out several years ago, Cenk. In Nixon Land, what Perlstein said was that the road to Nixon's White House was the discussion about law and disorder. And his point was that he set out to scare everybody. He was going to scare everybody. Back then it wasn't immigration. Back then it was, if you recall, the Nixon years, it was the anarchy's taken over the country. People are protesting about the war. Drugs have gone crazy. It was a different kind of pitch. But if you take that as a template to what Trump is doing, it's very close to that. His issue comes down to a fear over the fact that we have immigrant gangs coming into the United States that are going to rape and pillage, fear over loss of jobs. He has these very same talking points, and sometimes it's easy to believe that Trump is up there completely without a compass, completely without a plan. But I can promise you, when you take what was done in the Nixon years, and when you analyze what Holstein had to say about Nixon Land and how Nixon came into power, this is a repeat of that. The narrative is slightly different. It has to do with we got to be afraid of terrorists. I'm the guy to fix that. We have to be afraid of gang killings. Look at Chicago, 500 people killed. We have to be afraid of police officers being killed. And the people who have brought us all that is the last 20 years of Democrats. That is exactly the delivery that we saw with Nixon's rise to power. So every time you think that Trump doesn't have somebody advising him on those kinds of narratives, if you listen closely, you kind of conclude that there's more to it.
Well, actually, the guy that's advising him on that is literally the same exact guy who was advising Nixon. There's your connection. It's Roger Ailes.
Yeah,
Roger Ailes prepped Donald Trump for this debate. Roger Ailes was communications for Richard Nixon. And it's the same playbook, no matter what the facts are, Pat. So back then, we did have significant crime. Now, 2015, there's a slight uptick in crime from 2014, making it only the third safest year in the last 20 years. And only because 2014 was so damn safe that 2015 came in third, and 2013, etc., also safe. We've actually lowered crime tremendously. Now, ISIS is a significant problem, but Trump says it's the most evil thing we have ever seen. I'm pretty sure the Nazis were slightly more evil. But the playbook is not tethered to the facts, and the playbook is scare the living hell out of everybody and tell them you alone can protect them. Haven't we seen that throughout history, Pat?
Well, we've seen it during times in American history where there have been other issues that people have been concerned about. If you take that issue, these issues that we're talking about, and you add it to something that is more salient, something that maybe the American middle class is reacting to, if you notice the way he mixes up these discussions with things like NAFTA. And oh, by the way, yes, crime is bad. Your jobs are being taken from people from somewhere else. And Bill Clinton sent your jobs out of the country with NAFTA. And Hillary, she wants to do the same thing with TPP. So it's not the trick. I think what it is, there's an issue where it comes to trying a case, and you know this issue, and that is never go in and try to sell one solid issue. You sell the ancillary issues that merge with that very well. And I think, look, as goofy as Trump looked last night, there were times you're thinking, my God, how could this be any worse? As goofy as that was, in there was that pattern. if you listen carefully, there was that pattern. I woke up this morning and I saw a Huffington Post declaring a victory. Oh, this was awful. Trump is history. Hillary has won. That is wrong thinking. When in a few days, when we stand back and we see what the impact of this really was, I think we're going to be very surprised. We kind of look at this, and we say, well, which person would do better in front of the UN, for example? Well, obviously, Hillary's going to do better in front of the UN. She's going to be an impressive person in front of the UN. Trump's going to be a clown. But the truth is, Trump's followers, his base, would rather not have a UN at all. So it doesn't make any difference as you analyze all this. And so last night was very tough to follow. I think the pundits did a reasonably poor job. There were a couple of pundits I thought did a good job in saying, you know what, you got to call a winner here. If I'm calling a winner, I'm calling a winner on Hillary. Does this make any difference in the polls? Probably not. If it is, it's soft at best. And I think that's what I came away with, because this fear card, as we're talking about, law and order, it's still selling.
So, Pat, you won just about every award there is to win in the legal field. Your nickname's America's Lawyer. So I'm going to ask you to take on that role, but in the political sphere. And let's play a fun hypothetical game. So, and the first task is fairly hard. If you were advising Donald Trump, if he was your client, now he's got all those skeletons in his closet, he did the birther thing, he won't release his tax returns, you got a tough client here. How would you advise him to perform in a debate like this? What would you tell him to do and not do?
Well, I think you have to with Trump. You can't over-intellectualize, because most of his followers are anti-intellectual. And so when Trump tries to really argue basics, when he moves away from his demagogue role, anytime he does that, he's hurting himself. Interesting thing, and the reason I say that, Jack, is if you take a look at his pattern. Let's take the debate and make it a broader sense. My advice would be, do in the debate what you're doing day to day out on the stuff, because it seems to be working. And that is this: move from outrageous statement to outrageous statement. Because if you look at what he's doing day to day, he makes an outrageous statement on Monday. The corporate media comes in like little lemmings to try to do their awful analysis of what just happened, but by Tuesday he's moved on to another awful statement, and it's almost like a cage match of wrestlers. You can't thread a needle with anything Trump is trying to do. So whoever is advising him that, whether it's just his natural persona, which I'm sure it is, but who's advising him is saying, do not try to over-intellectualize with Hillary Clinton. That, unfortunately, as sad as that is, that would be the advice I would give him, because he doesn't have the ability to do it. He doesn't know the issues as well. We saw it last night when he had wonderful opportunities to take that he did not take, because he simply wasn't armed with the ability to do that. He had the ability to talk about Hillary's Wall Street background, but he wasn't really armed to do that. So you almost have to take this demagogue character and you have to say, keep moving, move to A, move to B, move to C, keep them guessing, and that's the best you can do with a candidate like that. It's like having a witness on the stand that you know you're never going to really get to be able to be the most capable witness. That's the type of advice you would give them.
That's really interesting. It's almost taking the fifth, but only on his defense. So don't bother trying to defend yourself, because you're not going to be able to do it. You don't have the intellectual capacity, and plus you're wrong. So just stay on the offense.
Exactly. Exactly. And you've seen it as a lawyer, Jank, so have I. I have to unfortunately use it sometime in court. I'll have a witness that burns down on cross-examination and on redirect. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reinvent the demagogue issues that he raised on direct. And so it's called a rebuild, it's called rehabilitation, and it's a technique that is used in a courtroom, and certainly it's a technique that can play itself out with Donald Trump if he does it right.
Okay, now let's turn to Hillary Clinton. If you're her lawyer and you're giving her advice on how to prosecute the case against Donald Trump, defend herself, however you think is the right way to play it, what would you tell her?
Well, first of all, I would tell her that she has to move away from this idea, this single issue. Trump is a horrible person. We get it, Hillary. Trump is a horrible person. You're seeing this even with social media. Social media thinks they can sell this election because Trump is a horrible person. Yes, he is a horrible person. But it's time for Hillary now to pivot and move beyond that and say, yeah, he's a horrible person, but I want to tell you what I can do that he can't do. If you really think about what was delivered last night, there was not a lot of that. There was not this reason that she gave to voters, to progressives, for example. The best example I can give you is progressives, Cenk. Like it or not, it is the elephant in the room. Progressives still are not sold on Hillary Clinton. Millennials still are not sold on Hillary Clinton. So what you do with that is you make a quick hit. Yes, Trump's a horrible person, but then you move back to substance. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. Let me tell you why I'm not horrible. Because I'm going to improve the lives of millennials. Millennials are going to be able to get jobs. Middle class is going to rise again because of these particular plans. She hasn't really done that. And Trump is a horrible person only takes you so far in the polls. You got to get progressives to turn out, but you got to give them another reason besides Trump is a horrible person. You turn out, and I'm going to do something for you. That's what makes people turn out. That's what you do in a closing argument. That's how you distinguish your case from the other case. This is what they're telling you. They did some horrible things. I showed you the horrible things they did. But let me tell you what it means in your life. It's called the reptilian mind. That's what it's called. The reptilian mind is always looking for that thing that's going to make their life better. And you can't just say again and again, Trump's a horrible person.
You know, that is really interesting because when Hillary Clinton goes to talk about her position, as she did at the very beginning of the debate, it sounds so rote. It sounds like she's reading talking points, which she has practiced over and over, which is probably because that's exactly what happened, right? She practiced those talking points, but it doesn't come with any passion or feeling. And she's a Clinton, so she can't help but think, well, it's a general election, I shouldn't be progressive. No, you should be progressive. Yes. If you went out there and said, hey, remember I adopted Bernie Sanders' education plan, so your kids are going to have a fair chance.
Yes.
Any of your kids can go to college for free. Now, isn't that wonderful that they get a chance to be as rich as Donald Trump? That's an affirmative case for your position.
Exactly.
You know, and so I totally agree with you on that. Let's try this one more time now with Lester Holt, the moderator. You know, next time it's going to be different moderators, of course. If you're going after Trump or Clinton, you know, you can take any perspective you like on this, Pat, in terms of what you would like to pry out of them, or what you think the American people will learn most from. If you were a moderator, what questions would you ask them?
I think I would have asked questions that really, you know, you'd think in a debate the moderator wants to keep an even keel. The moderator wants to simply put the question out there and move on to the next concept. But with these two candidates, with this particular setting, that really wasn't possible. So I guess if you're going to if you're in that setting, I really expected him to be more aggressive, to say what the American people are thinking. Look, they're looking at him just like they're looking at these two people on stage. He had the ability to ask the tough questions, to really put him to really go and pinpoint the things. For example, what is it that bothers the American people about Hillary Clinton? Well, what bothers them is it's another run of Bill Clinton. In 30 years, she's been around too long. She's been running for president since she was 12 years old. Her ties to Wall Street. What has she done how is she on the war hawk issues? I don't know why moderators are afraid to do that. With Trump, I can't even, you and I could sit here for an hour and talk about what he could have done, but you have to be more aggressive. You've heard the term, I know that you've heard this as an attorney, and that is that you always say what a jury is thinking if you have a problem. If you have a terrible client, you say, there's some terrible things about this client, ladies and gentlemen, that you're going to hear. The jury's thinking it, right? They know it. It's already in their head. Well, the American public, all of these things are in their head. Why are we not just putting it out there in an attack mode? Last night was the perfect opportunity to do that. He simply didn't have that. He was the closest to doing things like fact checks, but when it comes to the attack mode, go ahead and say what the American public is thinking. both as to Hillary and as to Trump. What is this political correctness that a moderator feels like they have to be locked into? We wouldn't do that in a courtroom, and I don't believe you would do it in a setting like this.
Now, of course, we both know the answer as to why they do it that way, which is that if they were more aggressive, then they wouldn't moderate the next debate.
Right.
They would be eliminated from contention from both the Republican and Democratic parties who actually run the debates. But it would be lovely if we had a real cross-examination of both of these candidates during a debate. Maybe one day somebody will sneak in there and go, I only got one shot at this. I'm going to go for it. So
it may in my career, but it'll be the thing they talk about for the next decade.
That's right.
I think it would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you mentioned wrestling earlier. God, that'd be great. Can you imagine? You got a standard mainstream reporter, and out comes Mike Papantonio, taps him on the shoulder, and goes, "All right." And he steps out, and you step in, and both the candidates are like, "Oh no!"
How much fun would that be, huh?
That would be amazing. One day we dare to dream.